So, we are in the month of November 2020. ECMAScript's 2021 version is expected to be released in the next year. I think it's an excellent time to review the new functionalities that are ready to be incorporated in ES12. Simultaneously, revise some of the existing ES2020 aka ES11 features as well. Let's begin with numeric separators. Numeric separator improves numeric literals by allowing a separator between the digits. Consider this 2 number. At a glance, sometimes it is really tough to make out such large numeric literals. But thanks to this feature, it is easy to make numeric literals more readable by creating a visual separation between the groups of the digit. Also, you can use this for binary, octal, hex, etc. As shown in this example, both the constants are resulting in same output, but the second literal is way more readable, isn't it? This feature is available in almost all the major browsers. toLocal string. This method returns a string with a language-sensitive representation. Here, I have used the same constant begint with separators. Now, in French, space is used to denote thousands. Same way, it is period in German. The results provided by the toLocal string can be customized using options argument. In its basic use, without specifying a locale, a formatted string in the default locale and with the default options will be returned. When we are formatting many large numbers, it is better to create a number format object and use the function provided by its format property. As shown here, this number format constant can be used to format any number of time with the given option. Though it is yet to be available in many browsers as a default feature, polyfills are available as a fallback. ES2020 introduced dynamic import functionality. Loading of files on demand removes lot of unwanted codes and thereby it improves application performance. In this example, we have 3 JavaScript classes having a single method greet to print hello inside a division with ID app in their respective language. On the other hand, in the index.js, we have a simple switch case for each language. For simplicity, already a language constant is defined on top of the page with French language. Dynamic import statement returns a promise for the module namespace object of the requested module. Here, unlike static imports, we are importing only one module instead of 3. Finally, adding a callback function to the received module and calling the greet method, and it works as expected. Dynamic imports are yet to be available in Node.js. Now let's get into promises. Promise.allSettled method returns a promise that resolves after all the given promises have either fulfilled or rejected. So sometimes you just don't care about the status of the promises. For example, here randomly we are pushing 5 promises independent of each other into an array and then want to log the responses once all of them are completed. The response is an array of objects that describes the outcome of each promise. In comparison, the promise returned by promise.all may be more appropriate if the tasks are dependent on each other or you would like to immediately reject upon any of them rejecting. In this example, returned promise will resolve when all of the inputs promises have resolved, and it will go to catch block as soon as any of the input promise rejects. Promise.any is the opposite of promise.all. It short circuits as soon as one of the promises in the array of promises fulfills. In this example, if all of the given promises are rejected, it will go to catch block. So, if the first promise is resolved, then this behaves same as promise.race. This method is useful for returning the first promise that fulfills. This can be beneficial if we need only the promise to fulfill, but we don't care which one does. Up next, we have nullish coalescing operator. I've already explained this and optional chaining during my TypeScript introduction video. In this example, doEnable method accepts a boolean as an argument, and based on the input, this method will disable or enable something. And in case no argument is passed, enable should retain its current value. So in the first call, it works as expected, but in the second call, since false is passed, state prop will take it as falsy value and consider the right hand part of the logical OR operator. Since previously enable was true, this operation will fail completely, assigning enable to true value instead of false. So to fix this, we have to replace logical OR operator with the new nullish coalescing operator that returns its right hand side operand when its left hand side operand is null or undefined. Otherwise, it returns its left hand side operand. Here are a few examples for better understanding this operator. Null coalescing is supported in all the major browsers now. So moving ahead, optional chaining was introduced along with nullish coalescing in ES11 to prevent errors in long chains of property accesses in JavaScript. So here we have an empty user object and we are trying to access certain properties from this object which does not even exist. So I have a more practical example of it after this. This is purely for explanation purpose. JavaScript's default nature is to throw a type error in these cases as we are trying to access a property of undefined. So to suppress these errors, ECMAScript team came up with this single asking operator called optional chaining. As I was mentioning in my previous slide, here we got an users array. Some of them are having null value as address. So ideally, while displaying the city name, it should appear blank or undefined. But here it is throwing error. But now, thanks to the optional chaining operator, application will continue to work without throwing any error or exception. Optional chaining is supported in all the major browsers now. Now, this next problem may sound extremely trivial, but trust me, it isn't so. Accessing the global object for web workers requires self. For web, it will be window, self, or frames. In case of node, it will be global, and the list goes on. In order for our application to work in all the environments, we might need this kind of utility function. Yeah, but even this will fail in modules and inside functions that are running in strict mode. The global this property provides a standard way of accessing global this value across all the environments. As shown here, global this is equivalent to global in Node.js environment. Again, in web console, comparing global this with window returns true. Global this is supported across all the environments now. Next up, we have match all method under string class. So matching a string against regular expression is already possible with the help of string match method. Here, this regular expression checks for alphabets globally. When we are executing string match in a loop, we are getting all the matches found. But this does not provide important information like index, capture group, etc. for all these matches. To achieve that, till now we had to use regular expressions exec method. I don't know how you call exec method that similarly tests for matches in string. Using this approach within a while loop works, but it is less efficient and unnecessarily it complicates the code for such simple requirement. But not to worry, as match all method of string class does exactly the same without the while loop and exec with G. Match all will throw an exception if the G flag or the global flag is missing. Now it is supported across all the major platforms and environments. After match all, we have replace all. Before replace all, we had replace method. Replace will only replace the first occurrence of the search string or regular expression. To replace all the occurrences, we need to apply the newly introduced replace all method of string class. This method is yet to be available in Node.js. Now this next feature was long pending, and I feel this will resolve a lot of security issues of the language. Let's see an example. Imagine we have this class that has a do method to print a message on the screen. Previously, just to assign a value to a class property, we had to create a constructor like this. Here is how we are importing that module and triggering the do method that works as expected. Now, with the help of class properties feature, we no more need to create a constructor just to initialize its field as shown here. Here, this underscore denotes this message field is private to this class and should not be called outside. This is a convention. But still we are able to call this from outside without getting any error. This was a major issue in JavaScript, which is resolved now thanks to the private class properties. All we need to do is to prefix the property name with a hash symbol. That's it. Now it is no more a convention. If we try to access this private property from outside, application will actually throw an error like this. When it comes to flattening an array, arrayFlat method does a pretty good job. It is capable of creating a new array with all subarray elements concatenated to it recursively up to the specific depth. If we don't pass any depth, default value is 1. In this example, we passed infinity as depth value to recursively flatten the array of any depth. So all this is fine. Imagine we have a requirement to insert double of each digit next to them. That is, 2 will be inserted in between 1 and 2. 4 will be inserted between 2 and 3. 6 will be inserted between 3 and 4. So to achieve that, we have created this utility doDouble method that takes a number as argument and returns an array that has the same value in the 0th index but double of its argument as the first index. If we use this inside map method, it gives something like this. Applying flat method to the response gives us the expected result. Since this requirement is very common in functional programming, now we have a dedicated flat map method to do the same. But why this is introduced when already we had methods to achieve the same thing, right? To find the efficiency of both, I ran a console timer. And this shows the reason. Flat map is clearly a winner in terms of performance. Okay, let's take an example first. getFileInfo method has to find a file, name of which will come as an argument. Since this is going to be an expensive search operation, we have introduced a cache here that stores the file object for the first time. So next time if the same search string comes, it can be returned from the cache. Usually references to objects are strongly held in JavaScript, meaning as long as you have a reference to an object, that object won't be garbage collected. Due to this, the cache map will never be garbage collected and it will result into memory leak. Currently, weak map and weak sets are the only ways to weakly reference an object. But since the key is a string here and not an object, they will also not be helpful in this case. Weakref is a more advanced API that provides a window into the lifetime of an object. Here we made a small adjustment in the getFileInfo method. We are storing the searched file object into a weakref and maintaining the weakref object into the same cache instead of the searched file object. While returning, we'll get the weakref object first and do a dereferencing to get the requested file object. This way, the weakref will be garbage collected without any issue. But one last thing is, still we are left with that cache map. Okay. Finalization registry provides a way to request a cleanup callback when an object registered with a registry has been reclaimed, or I should say garbage collected here. Here we are registering a callback to clean up the cache as soon as the corresponding weakref object is garbage collected. Basically, we are going through all the objects one by one which are registered in the finalization group, and if a specific file object is garbage collected from the weakref but still not undefined in the cache, this callback will delete that entry. So here goes the final implementation. One line is added for finalization registry with the search string and returned file object. Weakref and finalization registry is yet to be standardized in many platforms, but polyfills are available. As you all know, object.entries method returns an array having key value pair arrays of each item of the given object. In this example, object.entries method provides an elegant way to print the constant obj_1 declared on top. So this is how it appears in the browser. When we have a mechanism to convert objects into such key value paired arrays, it is equally common to convert maps or arrays etc. into similar object. Here we have declared a map on top. Now, with the help of object.fromEntries method, we can get similar object which was declared in the previous example. Using a simple for in loop, this object can be displayed in the screen now. In this next example, again we define the same object. Now, I'm going to modify each of these values. For example, appending a text. Let's start by converting it into a key value paired array using our object.entries method. Then apply a map function on that. So this map function will not change the keys like names, DOJ, etc., but append the example text that is checked in this case to each of the values, that is JSCult, education, etc. Finally, if we pass this into fromEntries method, it will return a similar object with the values modified as we expected. Last but not the least, logical assignment is a very simple change but really helpful. First example is of logical nullish assignment. Here we have two variables, A is 0 and B is null. So just like any other assignment operator, since B is null, this will evaluate the right hand side of the operator, that is the value of A. Therefore the output is 0 here. Similarly, once B becomes 5, nullish coalescing will evaluate the left hand side of it, obviously because it is no more null or undefined. Same way, other logical operators like AND, OR, they also can be assigned. Other than Node.js, logical assignment is mostly supported in all the major platforms. So this brings us to the end of today's video. If you learned something new from this video, then please hit the like button, and if you are new to this channel, then please consider subscribing to it. Thank you for watching.